Some lessons don't just teach you something, they wake you up and change the way you live. There are moments in life when everything shifts. You experience something, you hear something, or you face a situation, and suddenly, you're not the same anymore. Not because the world changed, but because you saw it differently. I've had those moments, I've lived them, and I'm going to share 5 of them with you today. 5 powerful lessons that didn't just change how I thought, they changed how I lived. You don't need 100 pieces of advice. Sometimes one clear lesson can do more for your life than years of trying things that don't work. These are not theories. These are not ideas from books. These are real lessons that came from real experiences, some tough, some surprising, but all necessary. When you apply the right lesson at the right time, your life starts moving in the right direction. What you'll hear today isn't meant to entertain you, it's meant to stir something inside you. Maybe you've been stuck. Maybe you've been waiting. Maybe you've been working hard but getting nowhere. These lessons are for you. They'll push you, challenge you, and if you let them, they'll help you take control of your future. Stick with me. Don't just watch this video. Listen. Think about your life while you hear these words. Because if you're willing to apply even one of these lessons, you may look back one day and realize this was the moment everything started to change. Now let's dive in. Number 1. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It takes daily effort. Growth isn't automatic. Nobody wakes up suddenly smarter, stronger, or more capable. That kind of progress doesn't just happen. It's built, little by little, choice by choice, day by day. You don't improve just by existing. You improve by pushing yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not exciting. That's one of the hardest things I had to face. I kept hoping life would just get better with time. But I realized time alone changes nothing if you don't change with it. Years ago, I was working hard. I was doing what I thought was enough. I showed up on time. I did my job. But I wasn't really growing. I wasn't learning. I wasn't stretching. I was just repeating the same day over and over. And I'll tell you, that kind of life is exhausting. Not because of how much you're doing, but because of how little you're becoming. It finally hit me one day. If I wanted a better life, I needed to become a better version of myself. And that wasn't going to happen on its own. It wasn't going to be handed to me. I had to work for it. I had to make the decision that from this day forward, I would grow on purpose. So I started, slowly, quietly. I didn't wait for a new year or a big change. I just decided. I picked up a book. I listened to someone wiser than me. I wrote down what I was learning, and I didn't stop. Every day, I put something into my mind that would help me think better, choose better, and live better. It didn't always feel important. Some days, the progress was so small I could barely see it, but I kept going. And looking back, those small steps were everything. Because daily effort builds something deep inside you, something solid. It builds strength, clarity, and pride. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on discipline. And that changes everything. People often ask how to stay consistent. The truth is, consistency doesn't come from feeling good all the time. It comes from knowing what matters and doing it whether you feel like it or not. That's where real growth lives, in the actions nobody sees, the ones you do without reward, without applause. You do them because you said you would, and that alone builds trust in yourself. Think about how many times we wait to feel ready. We wait for energy, for inspiration, for perfect timing. But that waiting keeps us stuck. The people who grow are the ones who act anyway, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncertain, especially then. They know every day offers a chance to become more, and they refuse to waste that chance. Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from challenge, from showing up when you'd rather not, from learning when it's easier to zone out, from holding yourself accountable when nobody else will. It's tough, yes, but it's worth it. Because over time, you start to see the difference. You handle stress better. You think clearer. You feel stronger inside. You make better decisions. You walk with more confidence. Not because life got easier, but because you got better. And you don't need big changes to start growing. You don't need a new job, a fancy course, or a perfect plan. You just need a decision, a real one. You need to decide that you're done waiting for things to happen and that you're ready to make them happen. That's how it starts. That's how it always starts. Daily effort is about the small things. Reading 10 pages, writing your thoughts, reflecting on your mistakes, asking better questions, choosing honesty over comfort, pushing yourself to go just a little further than yesterday. You do those things not because anyone's forcing you, but because you care about your future enough to invest in it. And that effort, it changes you. You start respecting yourself more. You start raising your standards. You start expecting more from your time, your energy, your choices. You stop wasting hours on things that don't help you. You stop settling for the bare minimum. You begin to protect your potential like it matters. Because it does. One of the biggest shifts that happened in my life was understanding that nobody is going to do the work for me. People can encourage you, support you, teach you, but at the end of the day, it's still on you. If you don't grow, you fall behind. If you don't make the effort, you miss the opportunity. And time doesn't wait. Either you move with it or it moves without you. Growth requires intention. It requires honesty. You have to admit where you're weak. You have to look at what you've been avoiding. You have to deal with the truth that maybe you haven't given your best yet, and then choose to change that. That's how progress starts. Not with blame, not with regret, but with a clear choice. Today, I will do better. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed. It's about refusing to go to bed at night knowing you didn't give the day your best. Even when the results don't come fast. Even when nobody notices. You know. And that's enough. Because every time you follow through, you grow just a little more. Every time you choose effort over excuses, you build the kind of life most people only dream about. It doesn't matter how far behind you feel. It doesn't matter how many times you've stopped and started. What matters is what you do now. What matters is whether you're willing to show up again today and give what you've got. Because those days add up. They always do. You might not see the reward right away, but one day you'll look back and realize the gap between where you were and where you are came from the days you chose effort over ease. Every day, you're either moving forward or standing still. And standing still too long is the same as falling behind. So ask yourself, what are you doing today to grow? What are you learning? What are you building inside of yourself? Are you using this day, or are you letting it slip? Because once you understand that growth doesn't happen by accident, you stop wasting time waiting for something magical to happen. You stop depending on chance. You start depending on your choices. You take your future back into your hands, and that's where all the power is, right there in your hands. Number 2, your habits shape your future. One day at a time. When I first understood this lesson, it hit me harder than any speech or book ever could. I looked at my life and asked myself, what am I doing every single day? Not what I say I want, not what I dream about, but what I actually do. That's the real test. Because your habits tell the truth. They quietly create your future, whether you're paying attention or not. Most people want change, but they keep the same routines. They want more money, but they don't manage the money they already have. They want better health, but their choices don't support that goal. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with the habits you live by each day. Not the big decisions, not the once-in-a-while breakthroughs. It's the daily choices that shape you. Years ago, I was struggling. I wasn't happy with where I was. I kept blaming circumstances, bad luck, bad timing, other people. But the truth was, I hadn't built the kind of habits that would move me forward. I'd wake up late, I'd drift through the day, I'd react instead of lead. And when I really examined it, I realized I was living the same patterns over and over again, and expecting things to change. But life doesn't work that way. If nothing changes, nothing changes. That was a hard truth to swallow. But once I did, I started building new habits. Not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, but because I was tired of wasting my own time. I started waking up with intention. I started writing down what I wanted to achieve. I made time to read. I paid attention to how I was spending my energy. These weren't huge changes, but they added up. They built momentum. They gave me direction. One of the first things I noticed was how much time I used to waste on things that didn't matter. Things that distracted me, drained me, kept me from what I truly wanted. When I replaced those habits with ones that actually built me up, life began to respond. Not overnight, but gradually. And the change felt solid. Not like luck or a fluke, but something earned, something real. See, every habit you keep is either building your future or stealing it. And most of the time, we don't even notice. We say we don't have time, but we scroll. We say we're tired, but we stay up late for no reason. We say we want to grow, but we never stop to ask if our daily actions match that goal. Your life becomes what you do consistently, not occasionally. That's why habits matter more than motivation. Motivation fades, habits stay. And building the right habits isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. You have to be real with yourself. What are you doing when nobody's watching? What does your morning really look like? What are you choosing when you're tired, bored, or frustrated? Those answers will show you exactly where your future is headed. And if you don't like the answer, that's your signal, not to feel guilty, but to change something. Start small. Don't wait for a big shift. Don't wait for everything to line up. Pick one thing and do it well. Wake up a little earlier. Plan your day the night before. Drink more water. Spend 10 minutes learning something new. These may seem like nothing, but over time they create a version of you that's stronger, sharper, more capable. You begin to trust yourself again. That's the kind of confidence nobody can give you. You earn it through consistency. One of the most important things I ever did was take full responsibility for my routines. I stopped saying I don't have time and started saying it's not a priority. That one change in language made it clear. If something mattered to me, I'd find a way to make time for it. If I wasn't doing it, maybe it didn't matter as much as I said it did. That level of honesty changes how you live. It forces you to line up your habits with your values. People often talk about goals, and that's good. But goals mean nothing without the habits to support them. You can set a goal to read 100 books this year, but if you don't read today, it doesn't matter. You can say you want to save money, but if you spend without thinking, that goal disappears. Goals give you direction. Habits get you there. You have to ask yourself, what kind of future do you want? And then take a hard look at whether your current habits match that vision. If they don't, start changing them, one by one. Don't try to overhaul your whole life in a day. Pick the most important habit and get consistent with it. When that one sticks, add another. Stack your habits like bricks. That's how strong lives are built. You'll be surprised how much can change in a year when you stick with the right daily actions. Not because of some huge breakthrough, but because of a quiet decision you made and honored each day. You showed up for yourself when it would have been easier to quit. You made a different choice when the old one was more comfortable. That's what separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck. And yes, you'll have setbacks. You'll miss a day. You'll fall back into old patterns. That's normal. Don't let it break your rhythm. Get back up the next day and keep going. One bad day doesn't ruin the progress of 100 good ones. What matters is the trend, the direction you're headed. As long as you're still choosing growth more often than not, you're building something worthwhile. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the most talented. You just have to be consistent. Show up for yourself every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring. Because those habits, those repeated choices, they're writing your story. And one day you'll look back and realize that the life you're living was shaped by the simple daily decisions you made when nobody else was watching. Number 3, change starts the moment you stop complaining. I remember a point in my life when I was always blaming something or someone. The weather was bad. The government wasn't fair. The people around me didn't support me. The economy was down. Every time something didn't go right, I had a reason outside of me. And for a while, that felt okay. It made me feel like I wasn't at fault. But one day, I sat alone, looked at my results and realized something. My life wasn't getting better. I was busy complaining, but nothing was changing. And that's when I understood this lesson. Change begins the very moment you stop complaining. Complaining feels easy. It gives you a way to take the pressure off yourself. But what it really does is steal your energy. Every time you focus on what's wrong, you take your eyes off what you could be doing to make things right. You spend your time in frustration instead of creation, and eventually it becomes a habit of pointing fingers, of sitting still, of feeling helpless. When I looked back at those months, even years of constant complaining, I saw the damage it had done. My mind had grown tired, my confidence was low, and the truth was, nobody was listening. People get tired of hearing the same frustrations. They might nod, they might smile politely, but inside they're thinking, why doesn't he do something about it? That's the reality most people never admit. The world doesn't owe you comfort just because you're upset. If you want something different, you have to move. The first real shift in my life came when I said to myself, enough. Enough of feeling stuck. Enough of waiting. Enough of talking about what I didn't like. I asked myself, what can I do with what I have, where I am right now? And even though the answer wasn't perfect, it was a beginning. That one change in mindset gave me back control. It's not about pretending things are perfect. It's about choosing what to do when they're not. Life is not always fair. People will disappoint you. Situations will feel heavy. But sitting in that pain without doing anything only extends it. You can acknowledge something's wrong without getting trapped in it. You can face a problem without letting it define your day. One of the most important things I learned was to trade complaints for responsibility. Every time I wanted to say, this isn't fair, I stopped and asked, what can I do about it? That one question pushed me into action. Instead of wishing people were different, I became more aware of how I responded to them. Instead of hating my circumstances, I used them as fuel to grow stronger. When I stopped giving my energy to problems I couldn't control, I found the energy to change the ones I could. There's something powerful that happens when you take ownership of your attitude. You start noticing opportunities you used to overlook. You begin seeing solutions that were always there, hidden behind your frustration. Complaining shuts down your ability to think clearly. Responsibility opens it up. When you shift from complaining to doing, you build momentum. And once momentum starts, it's hard to stop. People think they need everything to be perfect before they can take a step forward. But that's not true. You don't need the best tools, the best timing, or even full clarity. What you need is a shift in attitude. Once you say, "I'm done complaining," you step into a new role. You're no longer a victim of life. You become a participant. That alone changes the game. You also become more respected. The people around you notice when you stop whining and start moving. They see your effort. They feel your energy. People want to follow those who act, not those who complain. It's one of the fastest ways to build leadership. Not by talking about what's wrong, but by showing what can be done. When you take this step, you start experiencing something different internally. You feel lighter. Not because your problems disappear, but because your mindset gets stronger. You're not dragging yourself through the day anymore. You begin to see life differently, not as a list of things you can't control, but as a field full of chances you haven't taken yet. Now, this doesn't mean things get easy. Some days are still tough. You'll still feel tired. But instead of falling back into complaints, you remind yourself that every minute spent blaming is a minute lost. You can't get that time back. Use it wisely. Put it into actions no matter how small. Build something out of your frustration. I started doing little things at first. I organized my day. I wrote down my goals. I made phone calls I'd been avoiding. I worked on my communication. I didn't need anyone's permission. I didn't wait for someone to save me. And over time, those little efforts grew. They changed how I saw myself. They helped me become someone I could count on, someone others could look to. When you stop complaining, you send a message to yourself and to the world. You're ready. Ready to grow, ready to change, ready to do the work. That shift doesn't require money or special talent. It just takes a decision. A simple, honest decision to stop focusing on what's missing and start building with what's in front of you. Most people don't lack intelligence. They don't lack opportunity. What they lack is the discipline to shift their mindset. They keep feeding the problem with their attention, but the moment you stop feeding it, the problem starts to shrink. It doesn't own you anymore. You rise above it, not by magic, but by choice. And choice is something you always have, even in the worst conditions. You might not choose what happens, but you always choose how you respond. And the response that creates change is not another complaint, it's action. Every time you act instead of complain, you break the cycle. You rise a little higher. You become stronger. People will notice. Your energy changes. Your results improve. Your confidence grows. And most importantly, you respect yourself more, because you know you didn't take the easy path. You didn't settle into frustration. You stood up, took charge, and turned your own situation around. That's the kind of strength nobody can take from you. Number 4. People can inspire you, but you must do the work. You might listen to a speaker who lights a fire in your mind. You hear a story that moves you. You read a book that wakes something up inside. And for a moment, you feel ready. You feel like change is possible. That feeling is powerful. But if you leave it there, if you don't act on it, it fades. The emotion passes, and your life looks exactly the same. Inspiration can open your eyes, but it won't move your feet. That's up to you. People will come into your life who show you what's possible. They might be leaders, mentors, teachers, or friends. They'll tell you things that make you think. Their words might stick with you for years, and that's a gift. But even the strongest advice means nothing if you don't take it and do something with it. You have to take what you hear and apply it to your own world. Nobody else can do that for you. I remember sitting in the back of a room during a talk, listening to a man who had built his life from the ground up. He didn't speak loud. He didn't use big words, but what he said hit me. He talked about consistency, effort, and discipline. He talked about getting up early, staying focused, making sacrifices. I felt that energy. I believed every word. But when I went home, I had a decision to make. Would I start or just go back to my routine? That's the part where most people stop. They hear something good. They feel motivated for a day or two. Then they slip back into their habits. They wait for the next spark, the next speech, the next quote to give them another boost. But life doesn't change through moments of excitement. It changes through hard choices, daily effort, and a commitment to follow through. Motivation gets you started, but it's work that gets you results. Nobody else can do your reading for you. Nobody can show up to the job on your behalf. Nobody can build your discipline. They can cheer you on, they can point out the road, but they can't walk it for you. Every person who's made something great of their life had to put in the time. They had to stay up late, face failure, push through discomfort. That's what turns dreams into reality. You'll meet people along the way who give you new ideas. That's important. Keep learning from them. Stay open to wisdom. But remember, no matter how much they care, they can't carry the weight for you. They can't take your goals and make them real. That responsibility lives with you, and that's not a punishment, it's a chance to grow. When you do the work yourself, the reward means more. You don't just get the result, you get the experience. You get the confidence that comes from knowing you earned it, and that's something nobody can hand to you. You don't want to live your life chasing inspiration and avoiding discipline. You want to build something solid, something that lasts, and that takes effort. Some people make the mistake of thinking that if they're not always feeling inspired, they're doing something wrong. That's not true. Most of the real growth happens when you keep going, even when the feeling isn't there. It's in those quiet moments when nobody is clapping, when the path feels hard, that you make the biggest progress. That's when your character gets stronger. You'll hear great advice over the years. Some of it will stick, some of it won't. But the part that truly changes you is the part you act on. If someone tells you to set goals, set them. If someone encourages you to read every day, start reading. If someone says to take care of your health, then do something about it. Don't just agree, follow through. That's the part that matters. It's easy to look at successful people and think they got lucky. But if you look closer, you'll see the work. The early mornings, the hard choices, the setbacks they didn't let stop them. They didn't get there because someone else pushed them the whole way. They got there because they learned, then they applied, they listened, then they acted. And they kept doing that long after the excitement faded. Sometimes people think their situation is too different. They say that worked for them, but my life is more complicated. But the truth is, we all have challenges. We all have distractions. The people who grow are the ones who take what they learn and find a way to make it work. They don't sit around waiting for everything to be easy. They take responsibility. You might be surrounded by great books, smart people, and inspiring stories, but none of that will change your life until you decide to take action. You have to build your own strength. You have to stay consistent. It's okay to be inspired by others. It's okay to get excited when you hear something powerful. But after that feeling fades, what do? That's the real question. You can't live on motivation alone. You need structure. You need habits. You need a plan that you stick to, even when it's hard. That's where the results come from. And when you start seeing those results, even small ones, something shifts inside. You realize you don't have to depend on anyone else to push you forward. You've got the strength to keep going on your own, and that's a powerful feeling. You stop waiting and start creating. You stop hoping and start doing. The people who influence you the most won't be the ones who speak the loudest. They'll be the ones whose words made you take action, whose example pushed you to be better. But what you do with that inspiration is always up to you. That's your job. That's your part of the deal. Number 5. You don't need perfect conditions. You need to start. People wait far too long to begin. They think they need the right time, the right setting, the right mood. They say, once I get more money, or when I feel more ready, or after this thing settles down. But life doesn't clear a perfect path for anyone. The clock keeps ticking whether you move or not. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they never start. You'll never find the ideal conditions lined up neatly for you. There will always be something missing. The truth is, if you keep waiting for everything to feel just right, you'll be waiting for years. And the longer you wait, the more hesitant you become. The mind creates excuses when it doesn't have direction. The fear grows louder. The questions pile up. But action cuts through all of that. When you begin, the noise fades. I've seen people with half the resources accomplish more than those who had everything going for them. Not because they were smarter, but because they acted. They didn't wait for the weather to be perfect. They didn't wait for someone to come knock on their door. They made a decision. They took the first step with what they had, and that decision put everything else into motion. You might be thinking, what if I'm not ready? The truth is, you're ready enough. If you know what you want, if there's a goal in your heart, then the first thing you need is movement. Not a flawless plan, not endless research. You need motion. Get started, then adjust. Learn as you go. You don't build confidence by thinking, you build it by doing. The person who succeeds isn't the one who had the best plan. They're the one who followed through. Plans don't work unless you do. I've seen people carry journals filled with ideas that never left the page. They would talk for hours about what they were going to do, what they were planning to build, but talking never built anything. It's what you do when nobody's watching that shapes your outcome. Start where you are. You don't need a brand new setup. You don't need all the answers. If all you have is a few quiet hours and a clear goal, that's enough. Most people don't need more tools. They need more courage to begin. They keep looking for motivation when what they really need is responsibility. The results come from starting now, not later. Look around and you'll see people doing more with less. They work with what they've got and they make progress. They face the same struggles you do, doubt, fear, distractions, but they keep moving. That's what separates those who reach their goals from those who just talk about them. The ones who move, even without the perfect setup, eventually find their rhythm. You'll learn more by doing than by planning endlessly. When you're in motion, you start to understand the process. You see what works and what doesn't. You discover strengths you didn't know you had. But if you stay stuck in the planning stage, you'll never grow. Life rewards the person who starts. Even if it's messy, even if it's small, getting started changes everything. Some people say, well, I don't want to fail. But let me tell you, failure is part of progress. You don't become stronger by avoiding mistakes. You become stronger by facing them and pushing through. Starting teaches you to handle difficulty. It builds resilience. You realize that most of the fear was in your mind, not in the task. The habit of starting is one of the most powerful things you can build. Once you prove to yourself that you don't need perfect conditions, you stop relying on external things to move forward. You take ownership. You realize that the real barrier was never your circumstances. It was hesitation. And once you break that, you gain momentum. Momentum doesn't come from thinking about change. It comes from doing something about it. Take one step today. Don't wait for inspiration to strike. Don't wait until you feel like it. Get moving. One small action can lead to a series of steps that pull you forward faster than you expected. It's not about giant leaps. It's about consistent steps. You've got time. You've got a mind. You've got a desire to improve. That's enough to begin. Stop looking at what's missing and start looking at what's possible. Maybe you don't have all the answers. That's okay. You'll find them as you go. The important thing is to stop waiting and start acting. There's something powerful about the moment you begin. It shifts your mindset. It tells your brain that this matters. It sets a tone for everything else. The longer you sit in hesitation, the harder it becomes to break out. But the moment you move, you start to see things differently. Ideas become actions. Goals become habits. And the future becomes more than just a wish. You might have been putting something off for weeks, months, maybe years. That doesn't matter now. What matters is what you decide to do today. It's not too late. You're not behind. You're just one strong decision away from changing your course. But you have to decide. You have to act. Nobody else can do that for you. You don't need the stars to align. You don't need to wait for Monday. You don't need to wait for the fear to disappear. The fear doesn't go away before you start. It gets smaller once you're moving. That's when confidence begins to grow. Not before, but during. Not in thought, but in action. What's stopping you is not the lack of knowledge or the lack of resources. It's the idea that you have to be fully prepared. That idea is holding you back. The truth is, every strong person you see out there once started unprepared. They just got tired of waiting. They made a move. They stepped out. They accepted that discomfort is part of growth. If you want to build something, if you want to create real change in your life, don't focus on the conditions. Focus on the action. Start where you are with what you have. That's how everything great begins. That's how you build momentum. That's how you grow into someone you can be proud of. It begins not with perfection, but with courage.